thought is everything has a price. There is not a number that can get you back in that ring. 80 million, 100 million.
Nah, because now you selling your soul.
$100 million, you can have my soul.
That's you. Now we know your character. Sometimes, you know, you look at people and you be like, dang, man, you ain't got no dignity. You ain't got no morals. Like, come on, man. What you gonna stand for if everything is about money?
All right, Shalom. I want to start out by giving all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. I like to give double honor unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. And this is going to be a response to, you know, the video that just came out recently where you had Terrence Crawford, you know, do this, you know, interview where, you know, he was asked by, I forget the individual's name, you know, but he was asked if, you know, he would get back in the ring for, you know, 80, 100 million. He said no, you know, because at that point, you know, you would be selling your soul. To which the individual replied, you know, 100 million, you can have my soul, you know, and Terrence Crawford called him out, you know, pretty much that, you know, he said that we see your character, because that's, you know, the mentality of a lot of our people. You know, you dangle a certain amount of money in their face and then, you know, they're ready to do any and everything to obtain it. You know, a lot of our people don't have integrity. They don't have any morals, you know, and which is why, you know, these celebrities and athletes, you know, the higher ups of our people, you know, why they sell out, why they do the particular things that they do. You know, so I'm just going to bring out a couple of scriptures. Lord willing, this lesson is edifying, straight to the point. I'm going to start with the book of Matthew, chapter 16 and verse 26. And it says, "For what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul?" And right, man, you know, you can't literally, you know, sell your soul, you know, because again, our spirits don't belong to us anyway. You know, they're the Heavenly Father's. But, you know, the term, you know, to sell your soul, it means, you know, to sell your morals, to go against, you know, your integrity, to do things that you wouldn't normally do. You know, and we can see that, you know, a prime example would be like these rappers, you know, that want to get, you know, rich and famous to obtain, you know, a certain lifestyle. But what comes with that is them losing, you know, their dignity, their manhood, you know, because again, a lot of these rappers, they have to take that route. They have to, you know, bend over. They have to do some very, very sick things, you know, to obtain, you know, riches in this world, man. Because in order to truly be wealthy in this world, you have to be wicked, man, you know, because there's nothing wrong with money, you know, but what it says, the love of money. Because a lot of people in this world misquote that scripture. Money is not evil, man, because we need money in this current world we live in, you know, to sustain ourselves, to be able to live. You know, money itself isn't evil. The love of money is, right? So let's get that real quick. It's the book of 1 Timothy, chapter 6 and verse 10. And it says, "For the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows." And right. And even though, you know, this would apply to, you know, guys that are in the faith, you know, that's sold out, but still it can apply to, you know, those of our people that aren't, you know, because you have sellouts, you know, that are, you know, among, you know, the faith, and those that aren't, we clearly see, you know, they start out normal, you know, and then what, they obtain that, you know, that money, that lifestyle, that fame. And then what, man, they start acting different. They get weird. You know, they have to do these sacrifices, these weird rituals. You know, that's what comes with, you know, these large amounts of money that are offered to our people, man, which they're crumbs compared to what the elites have. But still, man, you know, dude is just ready to give it all up. And another example, man, Gilly the Kid, just a couple years ago, what, he sacrificed his son for what, $100 million, crying on camera while he's signing a contract. You know, you had your son killed so that you can get, you know, riches in this world. And at the end of the day, is it really worth it? So that's the question that's being posed. What shall a man gain in exchange for his soul, man? What are you really gaining? Yeah, you get the riches of this world, but how long is it going to last? Because as we know, those of us that are in the know, we know that this place doesn't have long. America doesn't have a long time left to still be in power. You know, it's on borrowed time right now. You know, the American dollar can collapse any day now. So those of our people that sold out, you know, for these millions and even, you know, billions of dollars, it's all for nothing, man. You know, they sold their souls for nothing just to still be, you know, in the lowest state, to still be at the bottom. Because even, you know, the higher ups, these elites of our people, I would say, I'm calling them elites because even though, you know, they're not elites in the sense that, you know, they have a higher status, you know, than the average so-called Negro, Latino, or Native American, you know. But even them, man, like it was for nothing, you know, because this place is on its way out of here, right? Let's look up a couple definitions real quick, man, because again, he said, man, you know, we see the type of person you are, you know. And he tried to laugh it off because he was embarrassed, and then as he should have been, man. Have some dignity, bro. Like, it's man, the things that our people are willing to do to obtain money is just sickening, man. It's sickening. So let's get the definition for dignity. And it says the state or quality of being worthy of honor or respect. And that dude clearly, he didn't have any dignity. 100 million, you can have my soul. Like, you just willing, you know what I'm saying? So that's all Amalek got to do. Just give you a phone call. Come on in this office. Here. Sign this paperwork. But cool. But, you know, you sign this, you know, this contract. Yeah, you can get this money, but we need you to do this and this for us. You know, understand that that money that they get, it comes with a price, man. It's a price you have to pay in order to obtain that amount of wealth in this world, man. It's just crazy. And they think it's just, you know, nah, man. So that's the definition for dignity. Let's get integrity. It's a definition for integrity. It says the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles, moral uprightness. Right, man. Moral uprightness, because us as a people, you know, the Israelites, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American, we are an upright people. And as we know, 2/3 of our people, you know, they're off. They're doomed, you know. But this is why they don't have any integrity, which is why the average, you know, nigga out here be ready to sell out at the drop of a dime. You know, you ain't got to offer them millions of dollars. Just, you know, as our apostles always said, I forget, you know, which of their elders, you know, used to say it. But again, you know, you can buy a nigga cheap. And again, man, it's a true statement. You can buy a nigga cheap, man. And that, what that dude said just proved it. You know, our people are just too eager to sell out, to do. They're not understanding the things that they're going to have to do in order to obtain that money, man. Like, it's just madness. This is why a lot of these celebrities end up bugging out. Yeah, they be all right for a period of time. And then what? They start losing their minds because they start realizing what they had to do. A prime example, you know, Kanye, you know, he sacrificed his mother. You know, Michael Jordan, his dad. Like, the list goes on, man. The list goes on. Or if they don't make a blood sacrifice, they have to do, you know, these homosexual acts and rituals, or just promote that lifestyle in general, you know, they have to do something. They have to have some type of dirt on you. They're not just going to give you this large amount of money and, you know, just let you live. No, man. No. Let's get this last definition, man, because our people, man, this is why the Lord isn't dealing with them, man, because they feel like we're going to be here in America forever. There's no hope. You know, 2/3 have no hope. But meanwhile, the 1/3, the elect, do. So I'm going to get this definition for morals. It says a lesson, especially one concerning what is right or prudent, that can be derived from a story, a piece of information, or an experience. Come on, man. Come on, man. Like, the dude, he doesn't have any morals. Because, again, if Terrence Crawford is telling you, he even made mention, you know, in a previous interview I seen, you know, he was asked if he would let us, you know, his children box. And he said, well, no, you know, I don't want them to have to go through what I went through, you know, because, again, it's a very brutal sport, man. It is. But at the same time, it's risky. It's dangerous. You know, you can lose your life getting in the ring, man, you know. And what this dude is saying, like, he doesn't care. Like, if he's retired, he said he's retired, man. You know, and I can understand, you know, you've already, you know, accomplished what you wanted to accomplish. You know, he said it wasn't about the money for him. It was about the legacy, you know, which is good because, again, man, you know, you want to be remembered for being, you know, great, you know. But our people, they don't care about that, man. You know, they just want to be remembered for being wealthy. But that's all for nothing, man. It's all gonna be for nothing. Like, our people, man, they're lost. So it's another precept, you know, I was thinking of. But let me grab this real quick. And the book of Mark, which, you know, just reiterates the same thing said in Matthew. It's the book of Mark, chapter 8, and verse 36. It says, for what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? And right, man, what are you gonna, what profit is it gonna get you, man? It's not. It's, you know what I'm saying? Excuse me, Slakia. You know, you may think you're winning. You know, you may be up. That's cool. You know, you got the riches of this world, you know. But what, man? You had to degrade yourself. You had to debase yourself. You had to, you know, lose your morals, your integrity, your dignity just to obtain wealth, man. You know, our people will do anything just to, you know what I'm saying, to try to live a better life when, again, we're not here. We're not, man, let me go ahead and grab that, man, because this is not our rest, man. This is not our rest. It's the book of Micah, chapter 2, and verse 10. It says, arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest, because it is polluted. It shall destroy you, even with a sword destruction. And right, man, this place is on its way out of here, man. So selling out, especially now in this current time where, again, you know, gold and silver is up, you know, and down right now. Silver, you know, reached, you know, a little over $100. It's about, what, $78. I just checked a little while ago. You know, gold, it reached, you know, $5,000. You know, now it's back down to, you know, like $4,800 for an ounce. You know, prices of basic necessities we need are increasing, man. The cost of living, like, things are getting more expensive, you know. But meanwhile, you know, our people want to live comfortably, and this country is going down. It's circling the drain, man. You know, just like it says, you know, in Jeremiah, you know, we would have healed Babylon, you know, but what? There's no healing her, man. So what's the point of selling out when this place is going down? You know, But again, the wicked of our people don't understand that. They don't see it. You know, they don't think that we're ever going to leave this place when, again, we were only brought here to the Western Hemisphere, primarily North America. Those of us that are in, North America, we were only brought over here to serve out, our captivity, to serve out our punishment. Then to be what? To be delivered out of this place. Lord willing, we be of the elect, man. Because if anything, that's sweet. That's the thing to strive for, man. To be saved, to receive salvation, not the riches of this world, man. Now, we're not going to lie. Yeah, we want to, be, financially stable, in this world, but we have to deal with whatever cards we were dealt, man. Speaking of myself first and foremost. But again, yep, that's it. Just let me grab that, what I was thinking of. So this is the book of Proverbs, chapter 30 and verse 8. And it says, remove far from me vanity and lies. Give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with food convenient for me. And right, man, just the Lord gives us just enough to get by. Because in reality, that's all we need, Because as, I've been getting older, me being at the age of 30, I understand, this scripture, now. Because we don't need to live, super extravagant lifestyles. We don't need the biggest house. We don't need the fanciest car. As long as we have our basic necessities, as it says in the Apocrypha, food, water, clothing, and a home, to cover shame. As long as we have our basic necessities, we're good, man. Because there's people in other countries that that would die to have, just the basic things we have, man. So again, which is why also, in the Lord's Prayer, it says what? Give us this day our daily bread, man. And that's what the Lord does. He gives us our daily bread. We work, our particular jobs, we earn, whatever amount of money, each man earns doing, whatever particular, profession he does, but at the end of the day, we see what having, extremely large amounts of money can do. It can bug you out. You could forget the Lord, and we don't want to do that. But we clearly see, again, the wicked of our people, they're forsaken. They're forsaken the Lord. So what? The Lord has forsook them, which is why, again, when Jacob's trouble is in full force, when all hell finally breaks loose, they're going to be left out here. But what? The elect are going to be fine, man. They're going to live. They're going to be okay. Some of the elect, will be martyrs. But again, they're still going to be fine, man. They're still going to make it while the rest of our people suffer, So I'm going to end it with this. It's the book of Ecclesiasticus, also known as Sirach, chapter 10 and verse 9. It says, why is earth and ashes proud? There is not a more wicked thing than a covetous man. For such an one setteth his own soul to sell, because while he liveth, he casteth away his bowels. Now, right, it's not talking about him, literally, casting his literal bowels away. But, man, we see that, again, just what that dude said. He said it. This scripture fits him. He's a covetous man. Man, $100 million, you can have my soul. Well, we see. And guess what you're going to have to do for that $100 million, man? You're going to have to take it up the rear, man. That's what that $100 million comes with. You losing your manhood. Being defiled by another man, No morals, no integrity, no dignity, man. And this is why the wicked of you niggas have to go, because you're willing to sell out for crumbs, man, because that's ultimately what it is. Yeah, $100 million is a lot to, an average person that hasn't really had money like that. But even then, to the elites, which have trillions of dollars, that's that's crumbs to them, man. $100 million is nothing to them. But what is something to us, because again, us as a people, we're in the lowest state. We're still in captivity, man. We're at the bottom of the totem pole. So, of course, we're suffering, being poor, because again, we're not poor in the sense that we're eating out of, garbage cans, though some of our people are, that poor, in extreme poverty. But the point is, as a nation, we're poor because, again, we're all supposed to be, ruling, we're a ruling class people, we're the true rulers of this earth, man. So the wicked of our people, they don't have a ruling class mentality, which is why they're ready to do things like this. But, those of us that have morals, that have integrity, that have dignity, we don't really care about the things of this world. Why? Because it's temporal. As a matter of fact, I'll actually end it with that, because all of this it's all going to disappear soon, So let me grab that. In 2 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 18, it says, while we look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal. So, right, which, the things that we can see now, the money, the fame, the women, the things of this world, of this current world, it's all temporal. It's all going to come to an end. But what? The things we can't see. What? The kingdom of heaven, man. Being rulers, being gods on the earth, man. Being righteous as a nation, That's what we're looking forward to. While our people can't see that, while they're nearsighted, those of us, the hopefully elect, we're farsighted. We can see the kingdom, and Babylon is all the wicked of our people see, which is why they're going to go down with it. So, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakodash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. Till next time I say, Shalom.
My thought is everything has a price. There is not a number that can get you back in that ring. 80 million, 100 million.
Nah, because now you selling your soul.
$100 million, you can have my soul.
That's you. Now we know your character. Sometimes, you look at people and you be like, dang, man, you ain't got no dignity. You ain't got no morals. Like, come on, man. Like, what you gonna stand for if everything is about money?